Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to this December 8, 2014 edition of Nightcast. A huge fire has swept through an apartment building under construction in downtown Los Angeles. More than 250 firefighters have been fighting the blaze, which broke out in an apartment complex in the early hours this morning, Monday morning. It's not thought anyone in the building at the time. It's not thought that anyone was in the building at the time, and there were no initial reports of any injuries. Richard Lister has this report.
From the Hollywood Hills, it looked like a scene from a disaster movie. Up close, it looked much the same. A huge luxury apartment complex utterly consumed by fire. Passers-by could hardly believe what they were seeing.
Downtown LA on fire. I can feel the heat.
The nearby motorway was closed as smoke drifted across the area.
Oh my God!
The intense heat finally kept onlookers back. The LA Fire Department passed the blaze as a major emergency. More than 250 firefighters battled it through the night. Thankfully, the complex was still under construction and no one was lit.
We have no injuries. Cause is under investigation and the loss is being tabulated. We estimate that it'll be in the multi-million dollars of loss.
For the developers, a disaster with no happy ending. Richard Lister, BBC News.
And friends, another disaster of sorts. And, you know, these things relate from the book of Revelation to the seals. They relate to the fourth seal, in that the fourth seal is depicted by Revelation as a pale horse upon which rides the rider of that horse is named Death. And at the heels of that horse, runs alongside the horse, Hades, hell, the grave. Revelation tells us, Jesus Christ says in plain language, the activities of this horse are loimos, meaning disease epidemics, pestilence, the plagues of Egypt. He also said that between the third and the fifth seal, that leaves the position of the fourth seal, there would be seismus, there would be commotions in the air, such as gale force winds of all kinds, and commotions on the ground, such as earthquakes and tsunamis and wildfires. And this isn't exactly a wildfire. There's likely some cause to this that may or may not become known in the report we just had. But Christ also said there would be, between the third and fifth seal, there would also be terike, disturbances, trouble, literally troubled waters in the figurative sense, both literally and figuratively troubled waters. And in the figurative sense, that would mean mobs and seditions. But because this is trouble, it also just means trouble, not the mega trouble, but trouble. I put that story also in the category of trouble and the fourth seal. And this next one, though, definitely relates to the category of seismus, commotions in the air, commotions on the ground. People displaced by Typhoon Hagupit in the Philippines have been returning to their devastated homes. The storm swept across the Philippines over the weekend, bringing with it heavy rains and winds of over 125 miles per hour. That'd be 200 kilometers per hour. Almost 1 million people left their homes to flee the storm. At least 21 people are known to have died. Jonathan Head reports from southern Luzon.
A school an hour's drive from Legazpi. For the past 2 days, it served as an emergency shelter during the typhoon. One of 3,000 in this province, for those whose homes were most at risk. It was this well-organised and determined evacuation which is now being credited with the very low casualty figures during the storm. Now that's passed, the army can take them home. Among them is Virginie. She's heading back to find out how her flimsy house has fared. They were all given 5-kilo bags of rice, an incentive to leave their homes for the shelter and help getting their lives back together again. Like so many Filipinos, she and her family are squatters on this roadside strip of land. Look at your roof. It's gone. The house is cobbled to with whatever materials they can afford. Can you repair your roof?
No budget.
No money.
No money.
Amazing. When you visit homes like Virginie's, you realise just how precarious an existence is lived by millions of people here in the Philippines, and how vulnerable they are to the increasingly severe weather that this country is experiencing. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Southern Luzon, the Philippines.
Okay, very precarious situation over there, but it wasn't as bad as they expected, as you heard, friends, and it wasn't as bad as last year. And of course, more people this year got out of their homes, and that could have helped the situation in the sense of limiting the number of deaths that occurred. And as you heard, there were at least 21 known deaths so far. Friends, you know, we're watching for a power block to come together in Europe that will eventually be whittled down or rebordered, however that comes out, so that, as the Bible explains, it will consist of 10 countries or regions, rebordered areas, however it winds up being done, a total of 10 kings who will give their, kings meaning heads of government, who will give their power to an emperor. And in this case, emperor meaning the overall head. The Bible calls him a beast, who will be the seventh and final head of a revived Holy Roman Empire. We're watching for that. The organization that most likely will be reshaped for that to occur is the EU. And the EU is becoming more and more organized, more and more powerful in the sense of its involvement in 3 different areas: political areas, economic areas. We saw them for a long time. They started out as an economic concern and became an economic union, with the euro being coined and circulated instead of just being a bookkeeping function as it started out its first year. Then it became circulated, had some struggles to go through, and then banking union rules were and policy was created, and so economically they formed a union that is pulling together. Politically, they formed a union that still shaping itself, and where it'll go with an ultimate head and a real head of it, and that seventh and final head of it is yet to be seen, which will then include the third element that we've been instructed to watch for, and that is militarily, when it becomes a military union. It's EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini is in the news tonight. She's in Turkey for talks with officials there. She's urging full participation in the fight against Islamic State militants in Syria. Ms. Mogherini and other top EU officials will urge Turkey to stop the flow of foreign fighters across its borders. In an interview with BBC's Lise Doucet, Ms. Mogherini said that while the crisis in Syria was Now, you'll hear her say this, that while the crisis in Syria was not something that could be solved from Brussels, the EU still has a role to play.
We know very well that Syria is not a crisis that can be solved from Brussels only. Obviously, Brussels, the European Union, can play a role, but I think we have to play our role at full, also by empowering more actors that might take the lead. And in this case, I think the United Nations are the right actor to play some sort of positive role.
A lot of crises. What's at the top of your in-tray now?
I have 5 years. It's a big responsibility, plenty of tools and potentials to be used. I would say Brussels. I'm having this in all member states on foreign policy, on security policy, including defense, to see how we can have a ownership of our common foreign security policy. Because if we decide together, it's because we know that there is not one single crisis or one single opportunity that we can work on a national pure basis.
Okay, not one single crisis they can work on. Well, not just yet. However, friends, I did pull some video from the middle of last month that also features Miss Mogherini. She is one of several key players in the EU to keep an eye on, and there are some out of Germany to keep an eye on too. You know, I named my new horse after one of the German leaders, Frank-Walter Steinmeier. He is in the news today, and I'll be analyzing all the reports. And tomorrow night I'll be speaking about what he's doing today. But tonight I pulled from the archive from November 17, middle of last month, some video that features Miss Mogherini again, where she was concerned regarding Russia and the Ukraine. In this video, she says Russia is both a part of the problem and part of the solution with respect to the Ukraine. And this is according to the EU Foreign Policy Chief. Again, her name is Federica Mogherini. She is someone you should definitely get to know. We're even told and instructed, friends, to pray for those who are in positions of authority. And this is certainly a position of much authority that Ms. Mogherini holds. She recognized the importance of engaging with Russia and creating dialogue with Kiev. The head notes for this video story from November 17 say it also points out the EU failed to agree on new sanctions for Russia. And here's a little bit of her talk from November 17 related to that, so you can hear the substance of that and just get to know Miss Mogherini, EU policy chief, foreign policy chief. Get to know her a little bit better, and we will be watching for more activity from her in the future.
The main discussion today was how to relaunch or how to re-engage in a dialogue, given that Russia is for sure part of the problem, but is also for sure part of the solution, of the possible solution to the crisis. How to engage with Russia in a dialogue between Kiev and Moscow, between Kiev and the east of Ukraine, between European Union and Russia, not only on Ukraine, but also on a wide series of elements, global, regional issues. And this is going to be one of the issues on which we will go more in depth in the coming months to reassess our action with Russia. So one line, major EU political role on the way to find effective means to have a political solution to the crisis, engaging with the dialogue with Russia. Second, the instrument that we have used so far in our policy, not a policy in itself, but an instrument, the economic pressure with sanctions that are an effective tool in a broader strategy. In this, we decided today additional listings of individuals, as you have seen, and that will take place with a decision in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, again, remember now, this video was from November 17, friends, and it's the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Federica. I just pulled a blank there. I told you her name a couple times, and now I've lost it. Someone we want to get to know, Mogherini, Federica Mogherini. Now, friends, in our next story, we're coming back to the United States. We opened with a story out of California where there's a big fire, an apartment complex. But this next story, a little bit, it involves our government leaders and kind of a little bit social at the same time. Something, though, definitely to keep note of. Prince William met with Barack Obama at the White House today. The head notes read like this: the Duke of Cambridge has met Barack Obama at the White House, telling the U.S. president that in the excitement of his son Prince George's birth, he forgot to check whether he was a boy or a girl. Speaking to Mr. Obama in the Oval Office, Prince William said he and his pregnant wife, the Duchess of Cambridge, were preparing for a busy year next year. Prince William, who is in the United States for a 3-day visit, will later address the World Bank on wildlife crime. Here's a little bit of video from that meeting today.
Last time, I remember when George was born, I forgot to actually work out whether it was a boy or girl. The excitement of the event and everything else was just chaos. So you suddenly forgot actually it's a boy at the end. So no, it's good. But we had it's going to be interesting next year. It's a busy year next year. Yeah, so it'll be good.
Thank you very much, everybody. Very important work. Thank you.
Got pretty much every member of the press in here. Can't get any more people in the Oval Office.
Okay, friends.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good to see you, though.
From this part of the meeting, that's really all the video we have, and all that happens is the president just keeps telling everybody to get lost. Okay, but whoops, I meant to go over here. I've got some more video, though, related to the prince's visit. After meeting Barack Obama at the White House, well, let's see. My video player's not cooperating here with me, friends. Let me see. After he met with Barack Obama at the White House. Okay, this video will open up from the White House, but it'll move on regarding a speech to the World Bank that the prince was making. This just kind of interesting. Let's see what's in this one.
There's nothing like a bit of baby talk to break the ice, even in the Oval Office. William recalled that in the joy of George's birth, he'd overlooked one detail.
I remember when George was born, I forgot to actually work out whether it was a boy or girl. The excitement of the event and everything else was chaos. So you suddenly forgot to ask. Actually it's a boy at the end. So no, it's good.
But what about the serious stuff? William's campaign against the trafficking of ivory and rhino horn. What did President Obama think of that?
Very important work. Thank you.
With that endorsement, William headed to France at the World Bank to deliver a speech urging the international community to do much more to combat the gangs of poachers who are decimating Africa's population of elephants and rhino.
Criminal gangs turn vast profits from the illegal killing or capture of wildlife. Armed groups and terrorists swap poached ivory for guns, and middlemen oil the wheels of the trade in return for reward.
It had been an impassioned speech on an issue William is making his own. William and his wife have very deliberately pursued separate programmes today. William here in Washington on wildlife conservation, Catherine in New York with disadvantaged young people. She went to the Northside Centre for Child Development in Harlem, founded nearly 70 years ago by two civil rights leaders. Perhaps not entirely surprisingly, many of the children didn't know quite what to make of her.
And you know they think you're frozen.
Frozen, in case you didn't know, is an animated film about a fantasy princess and her Iceman partner. Not entirely apt, given the warmth of the welcome these two US cities have been showing them. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News in Washington.
Okay, friends, I thought keep us up to date on what our counterpart, the descendants from our brother Ephraim in the UK, are doing here in the modern-day Manasseh in the United States today. We're going to go next to some news related to Germany, and my video player is doing some funny things, so I hope it's putting up the right slides for me for this. Yeah, I believe that is the slide that will go with this story. The caption, the caption under this photograph for this story reads, "Refugees in Germany, language rights are a sensitive political issue." And here's the way this story goes, friends. Immigrants should speak German not only in public, but also in the home, is the quote from this story from Bavaria's governing conservatives. And they add this in a provoking way, provoking a torrent of criticism. The Christian School Union, CSU, an ally of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, says it is a matter for debate, and it's not yet official policy. Critics launched a Twitter hashtag, which became a top trending topic among German Twitter users. Let me see if I can pull up that hashtag and tell you what it is. It would be #YALLA CSU. I don't know if you have to all cap that or not, but it's a capital, after the pound sign is a capital Y, and then lowercase ALLA, and then all uppercase CSU. Yalla CSU. Maybe that's a German word, but that became a hot trending topic among German Twitter users. Some express alarm about politics reaching into the home. The hashtag is an ironic joke, the news story says here, friends, at the CSU's expense, as Yalla, YALLA, is Arabic for let's go. The CSU draft proposal says, quote, "People who want to remain here on a permanent basis should be encouraged to speak German in public and within the family." CSU General Secretary Andreas Scheuer said the proposal was, quote, "well prepared and widely backed." The General Secretary of the center-left Social Democrats, SPD, said the CSU had, quote, "arrived in absurdism. It would be hilarious if it weren't so dangerous," she said. The SPD, like the CSU, is in coalition with Ms. Merkel's Christian Democrats, CDU, at national level. The SPD's leader in Bavaria suggested the proposal would be impossible to enforce, saying, quote, "All we need now is the CSU language police to control all of this." CDU General Secretary Peter Tauber said, "I think it's nothing to do with politics, whether I speak Latin, Klingon, or Hessian at home, and in the Greens leader in Bavaria, Elke Halitzky, joked that the CSU's next move might be to fall to tell citizens to have blue and white carpets at home, the colors of the Bavarian flag. Well, that's kind of the politics going back and forth on that story, friends. I just wanted you to be aware of that's going on. It reminds me of a time, going way back to when Gerald Ford was president, and he was on a trip to Los Angeles where I was living at the time, and I was working downtown Los Angeles for a while, so I can really envision that huge apartment complex on fire there today. But I didn't always eat my dinner. I had to work late and overtime, and I had a little break, and I wanted a nice dinner, and I was working in a law firm and had a very good income, so I went over and had my meal at the top of the Bonaventure Hotel, where they have a rotating lounge, or the restaurant rotates around inside the building, and as you can see all different parts of Los Angeles while you're eating. It rotates slowly, very slowly. So I went up there to eat, and I was there before the other party came in, and while I was there eating, Gerald Ford, who was staying in the hotel, came in with his party. Of course, some of the Secret Service people and his chauffeur was part of the party. And the chauffeur got left odd man out at the table where the president was. And I was alone. I invited him to sit down with me, and he sat down with me. And so I'm talking with the president's chauffeur that evening, while at the table over there next to me is Gerald Ford and a whole bunch of Secret Service people. And weren't that many people in the restaurant, and I didn't know ahead of time that the president would be coming there to eat, so it was kind of a interesting surprise. And the chauffeur told me this, though. He said, while the president was driving around today, the president said to the chauffeur, and it was, I guess, just them in the car, chauffeur and the president. The president to the chauffeur, he said, if I could have my way, I would have it so that in this country, when foreigners come over here to live, they would have to speak English. They would, he said, they really should speak English. And the chauffeur just shared this with me. No reason. He just told me what the president was saying to him today. I think I might have asked him, well, what's on the president's mind today, or what was he talking to you about, or whatever. It opened up the chauffeur to tell me that on the president's mind and what he'd been speaking to him about while he was driving around that day was that people that live in this country should speak the language of the country, English, and that our courts and various and different things should not cater to any other language. I thought, well, that's interesting. So that relates to this story from Germany today, friends, where it's not that unusual that the leaders of a country would feel that the people in their country should be speaking the language of that country. Of course, Germany's gone out of its way to, in some cases, offer English, German, their language is German, of course, to offer German language courses even outside of Germany for people who are coming to Germany, and they go out of their way in that way. So that story today was in the news. I think I may have one other story I could tell you about before we close it up that I pulled up for us. Let me just run my notes ahead. It's just a repeat. It's just an older, last night's version of Typhoon Hagupit, just mentioning that it's weakened, continues to slowly sweep across the Philippines, causing some damage. And as of last night's report, only 3 people had then been killed since the storm made landfall on Saturday. But then in tonight's news, that number has been updated to 21 who have been killed. And I think we maybe I'll just close up. Let's just play this to close it up, because that's pretty. Rupert Wingfield Hayes has a version of this report from last night, and that's pretty devastating on the people in the Philippines once again. It is still a big story, even though it weakened and it did kill 21 people so far. There won't be as many people. I think when Rupert was reporting last night, they didn't know of anyone who had died yet. But just keep in mind that this is last night's report. We do now know 21 people have died. We'll close with this, friends. This story on the big storm Hagupit in the Philippines. This video from last night.
Has been a pretty terrifying night for these people. For 12 hours the wind has howled across Tacloban, tearing off roofs and shredding the tarpaulins on their shanty homes.
Well, the storm isn't really even over yet, but already people are back starting to repair their houses here once again. The really good news is that, as far as we know, nobody has been killed here in Tacloban by last night's storm.
But it is north of Tacloban that the storm has hit hardest, so that is where we're going. As we head up the coast, evidence of the vast amounts of water dropped by the storm overnight, and of the strength of the winds. It is well after dark by the time we arrive at our objective.
Well, we have finally made it to Borongan. It's taken us about 4 hours of driving to get here. This is really close to where the centre of the typhoon came ashore last night. And although you probably can't see it, this street behind me here is covered in a thick layer of mud from the flooding, which we've been told came up to the second story of some of these buildings here. There's no electricity, there's no mobile phone signal. It's a complete mess. But remarkably, we've been told that here too, nobody died.
In Borongan Cathedral we find the locals giving thanks for their deliverance. Ash still covers the floor, let in by the huge new holes in the cathedral roof.
We're still traumatized by what happened a year ago, and then another storm comes, and really we're scared again.
They used to believe that megastorms were a once-in-a-100-year event here. Now they're starting to believe they could become an annual one. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News in Borongan, Eastern Philippines.
Friends, the ending point of that story was one reason I especially wanted to play this video from last night for you. I may have played it last night, I can't remember, but that ending point was significant in that they used to think it was a rare thing for them to have those typhoons. Now they are getting a whole lot more used to them than they would like to, really. That's it, friends, for this Monday night report. God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll be back again tomorrow night, Tuesday evening, with the day's current news related to the Bible and prophecy here on Nightcast. Until next time, your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.